And we're live. We're live on YouTube. And this is how I do all my lectures, right? So that's part of it. And I'd like to say welcome. We are IABL 2017, and this session is all about recording your lectures on YouTube and how that can help you out. And what are the pitfalls, positives and negatives. We can also talk about things such as best practices. Notice I have this really weird device in front of me. What is this? It's a mic, because if you try and record things with your laptop, it's going to suck, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to use some kind of device. We'll talk about that. So I gave this short code if you want to find my YouTube channel, as well as this QR code that I created today, if you want to kind of capture that before we move on. That'll take you to my YouTube channel, because my name is a really long last name. If you actually look at my name, it's like Tom Tsiopoulos. When I was younger, they always called me Silly Octopus, or, you know, Tommy Alphabet, because it was so long. People couldn't understand how to pronounce my name, right? I always break the ice, by the way, the exact same way every time. I always say Tommy Alphabet. So you guys remember me. I work at Centennial College, but I also work at Georgian College in Barrie. I also work at George Brown College, teaching everything from software engineering to interactive gaming. That's what I do. And so you're going to say, well, what the heck? How come? Why YouTube? Why did you do all this stuff? So I've been doing this since 2011. I left the, I would say, corporate, culture that I was in at the time. I was a software developer, and a friend of mine said, hey, what do you think about teaching? At the college level, you can bring your expertise to college. I'm like, well, I've never taught before. I've done lots of PowerPoints. I've trained managers, but never did this professionally. Come check it out. And so I checked it out, and everything else kind of went from there. I started teaching Python, of all things, for people who know what that is. It is a very high-level language, but it's really useful. And I had some trouble. Because students were like, you're going too fast, right? And we're going to talk about that. So I have about 1,300 videos right now on YouTube, and that's going to go down. I'm going to kind of prune some of those, probably at the end of, this is the end of semester. So we're going to prune some of those. I'm going to reduce some of those. I'll talk about why I do that and how come there's so many right now. So I was going too fast, and students can't do something like this. They can't like look at their keyboard, watch me, and then look back at they just can't do that. It's really hard for them to, especially in a technology situation where they can't keep up with me. By the time they look up, I've already moved on, right? And it's not that I want to move on, it's because I got to keep going. I have an hour and a half sometimes, depending on the structure of my lecture. Maybe I have 3 hours, sometimes I have 4. But regardless of what I'm doing, I'm moving on. There's a lot of stuff I have to demonstrate for students at the college level, and they can't keep up with me. And they say, could you slow down? Or could you show me that again? Can you redemonstrate that again to me? And the answer is, no, I cannot. I don't have time, right? Not because I don't want to, and I'm not going to reteach you something that I talked about last week, right? And I used to point them to the PowerPoint slides and to the textbook and all that kind of stuff. But let's just face it, right? The textbook for technology sucks. It's impossible, because the technology keeps rolling on, right? Especially in the computer software engineering field that we're in right now. Web, every 3 months something changes, right? So a textbook is just not good enough. And so what do? We kind of make our own content regularly. It's always prep for us. And if I create my PowerPoint slides, unless I create PowerPoint slides every semester, they're going to be a little bit out of date. So even if I talked about something, and let's face it, also, I'm not a robot. So the things I said this semester is not what I said last semester, not exactly. So I was looking for a way to enhance that learning experience. And with the kind of rise of other online video services like lynda.com and other services like Pluralsight, and those kind of services that people can pay for a reasonable price, $35, $45 a month sometimes, if you're a student, even less. I'm like, how do we compete? How do we provide a good product for students at the college level? They're paying all this money, and universities, but yet we don't record anything, and we expect everyone to understand and know. Yes, that's the old way of doing things, but nowadays people are more visual learners, right? They want to watch. They want to be able to watch it again. They want to fast forward me all over the place. They don't want me to talk too much. They kind of fast forward through my talk to get to the part that they want to see and review over and over again. And they can't do that with me just being live. So that was kind of the reasons why I did all this stuff. Now, I didn't want this to kind of be an excuse for students not coming to class, because when I talked to my colleagues, they were like, oh, I would never do that. The students are never going to come to class. It's never going to happen, right? Because, hey, if they can watch your videos, what's the reason why they would come to class? I mean, they could ask you a question on email. If they really want to, they wouldn't have to come to class. You're going to talk to an empty classroom. And in the beginning, I was like, well, that's up to them, really. I mean, they're paying for the course. They don't want to come to class. They don't have to. But we know that there is a correlation between attending class and doing well, right? I mean, whenever students ask me, how do I do well in your class, professor? I always say, come to class, hand in your assignments, right? Those are the two things I say. Attend your midterm and final exam. Make sure you study. That's it. I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you do those basic things, if you hand something in, you're going to be okay for the most part. I'm not that difficult, I don't think, right? It's the people who don't hand things in and they can't keep up and all that stuff, and that's a whole other issue. So that's what started all this. I had real technology challenges. In 2011, when this whole thing started, I mean, there was only QuickTime, something called OBS, which is still in existence today, which is an open broadcast kind of software that you can use cross-platform. So if you don't want to use a commercial software like I'm using right now, you could use OBS. It's still available today. There is a bit of finicky tinkering you have to do to make that work, and that's why I'm not recommending it as the #1 thing. Camtasia, very popular software for Windows, and then my favorite on a Mac. I'm a Mac for now. I'm a Mac person. Not that like I said, I'm not a cult of Mac person. I'm not suggesting that this is gonna, it's gonna last. Who knows if Apple continues this way? But I use ScreenFlow, and ScreenFlow is something that you can use full video editing. Nothing too heavy too. I didn't want to go into, Premiere or a Final Cut or something like that, because I'm not in the business of making videos. That's not my job. My job is delivery. I want to provide a good product. I want to be able to lecture, and I want it to be lightweight, right? When it becomes too difficult, or if it becomes too technical, or if I have to do a lot of post-production, I really don't want to do that. That's just more prep and more, stuff that I got to do throughout the semester.
So you don't use ScreenFlow for PCs?
No, unfortunately, that's the problem. And the reason for that is because they just, they focus on Mac. But you can use the other software, and we're going to talk about other suites of software as well that are available to you. So post-production work, I didn't want to do that, but in the beginning there was no choice. I didn't have an option. I had to do transcoding, so I had to use some kind of software. At the time, I was using OBS, Open Broadcast Software, or the service, and I would kind of, do what I'm doing right now. I would talk, I would demonstrate, and then I would record, and then afterwards I had this period of an hour at least per hour almost of recording. I would have to almost do transcoding and post-production work and all this kind of stuff. It became unreasonable, right, for us to do this kind of thing. Then I uploaded everything, and if my recording was a gigabyte, like we're talking about back in 2011, internet speeds weren't as good as they are today. It would take me sometimes 3-4 hours for one video to upload to YouTube, and that was a long time. So it was tiring, but I did it every week from 2011 until now, or actually until things changed. How do things change? Enter YouTube live streaming, right? One of my students one time said, "Professor, I don't know if you noticed, but you can stream live on YouTube." I was like, "No way, is that really possible? Let's check it out." So I went on YouTube, and yes, at the time, and I started way back, you could do it, but you had to be verified, and you had to have, for you to generate a video greater than 15 minutes in length, you had to basically do advertising on YouTube, right? So you had to monetize your videos, which again kind of sucked, because students had to watch a little ad before or after they watched your video. But that way you could make a video that's an hour or more in length. So I kind of went that way for a while. And that's what happened in 2013, up until 2013. I mean, after 2013, they started to relax things. They said, as long as you're verified, you verify your account. And that doesn't mean any kind of credit card or anything like that. That's just verifying your account with your phone number, as an example. You could stream as long as you wanted on YouTube. 2 hours, yeah, you forgot that. 1 hour, however long you wanted, and it was no problem, right? So that's where I started doing things more on YouTube. And YouTube became almost like a one and done solution. So not only do you stream live, which I'm doing right now, but I'm also transcoding and recording on YouTube all at the same time. So that whole post-production work scenario, fiasco, call it whatever you like, is gone for the most part, unless I had a breakdown, which happens sometimes. Like, for example, let's say we have an interruption today. Then later on, I'm going to have to put this up on YouTube for you. It happens. But more and more, it's more reliable, and so it doesn't happen as often. Yeah.
And you're live now, so people are viewing it right now.
People are viewing it live,
If you
yeah.
have an interruption, you pause.
I cannot pause,
You
right?
cannot pause.
So we're going to talk about best practice for recording, right? So that's the one thing. I mean, if I could pause the video and go back, it'd be great. But if I stop the video, this event is done, right? So that's the kind of the negative about it, right? So
You can always go back and do some production.
I could, but then that means post-production work, and I'm not in the post-production business. Now, you might want to, and you totally have the ability to do that. You can also download your YouTube video later on and do all kinds of things with it. I don't do that kind of thing because, again, strictly I'm just using it for delivery and as a backup, as an extra resource for them outside of the textbook and outside of the slides, because I don't want to talk to slides all day long. In fact, if you notice, I'm kind of looking at my slides and I'm using them as a backdrop, but I don't want to speak. I don't want to, kind of say whatever the slides say. Otherwise, just watch the slides, right? Slides are boring, right? So I kind of try and move through that. But guys and girls, please, if you have a problem or if you have a question, stop me, and then I'll direct you on what to do. So again, like I said earlier, for those people who didn't come in at 1 o'clock, if you use your laptop, if you pull up your laptop, because I'm going to show you how to connect to YouTube and do all this stuff, we're going to do a recording together. I want you to practice today. So you have one, you can see if it's for you. It may not be for you, but it's something that you have to get used to doing. It's going to be part of your routine if you're going to incorporate this into your lecturing. Okay, so let's talk about YouTube a little bit. You need a Gmail account. Okay, that's the main way to do this. And I actually set up a Gmail account for practice. You can do it other ways, but you need to set up a Gmail account. When you do, it'll give you access to YouTube. And when you go to YouTube, you have to sign in. And now this is the time that I think if you guys need time, we could do this together. So does anyone not have a Gmail account? Yeah, if you don't have a Gmail account, sign up. It's not going to kill you. Don't worry. They're not going to spam you too much, right? Just a little bit. And then what you want to try and do here with YouTube is you want to create your own channel. You need a channel in order for students to find you. By the way, one thing I'm not going to be talking about today is SEO, search engine optimization. Like if you want to do something like be a YouTuber, that's not what this session is about. Although I guess I'm a YouTuber, right? Although I didn't really want to be. And there's a whole other thing about search engine optimization that could take a whole other lecture. We could talk about this for days. But that's not what I'm about. I'm not about monetizing. Although I could. I don't think it's right for us to monetize as we're when you're working for a school, an institution somewhere. I think I had to do it at the time, and that's why it's still there. But I don't do it for monetizing, and I haven't made really anything since that point. It's not for that reason. It's because at the time that was required by YouTube. So again, please, if you follow along with me, you need to have a Gmail account. The next step is you need to go and go to YouTube and set up a channel. And if you follow my steps, when you go to YouTube, it's going to basically say, hey, sign in with your Gmail account. You're going to have a little icon on the right-hand corner that's going to look like this, right? And when you click onto it, it's going to show you this Creator Studio stuff, or this link to Creator Studio. When you click on Creator Studio, it's going to take you to this. It's going to show you your channel. And what we want to focus on today is live streaming, okay? It's going to immediately show videos, but for you, if you've never done a video before, it's going to show everything empty, okay? So to show you what I'm talking about here, I'm going to go back to YouTube. Even though I'm recording, I can do this. On the right, here's me, right? And on the left, when I clicked onto it, you can see that I have access to something called Creator Studio, right? There's Creator Studio. And when I click onto Creator Studio, you can see that it gives me all the videos that I've recorded over the last, I would say, month or so. On the left, you can see there's Video Manager. And Video Manager, if you click on it, it'll do things like show you your playlists. Here's your playlist and the total number of videos you have. And you can look at each of the videos, and you can do things like editing. You can do things like monetizing and so on. We're going to talk about things that I do and I don't do. And one of the things I'll tell you I don't do is I don't accept comments on videos. Because again, this is not because I want to make money from students or anything like that. It's simply a resource for them, right? So I'm not looking to try and get feedback from them right now. And sometimes feedback from students can be out of this world, right? And I don't want it to distract from what the product is. The product is us helping them to have another resource for them to, to learn with. It's not for us to replace anything that's already there or anything like that. However, I have to talk about this because it happens. We get addicted to recording, and then we have to find out ways of how do I do board work? We're going to talk about that in a bit. How do I do those traditional things that help students learn? So videos, you can see videos here and playlists, but what we want to focus on here is live streaming. Now, if I click on live streaming here, for me, you can see that I have an option of clicking on events. In the beginning, you won't have this option because you have to verify yourself. And verification is really simple. First of all, it's going to ask you to create your channel. And again, I'm going to share these slides later on. And you can also watch the video later, which is also online. You're going to click on events, and it's going to say enable live streaming. When you see this message that says enable live streaming, this is where you're going to verify yourself. Right? So you're going to click on this little button that says enable live streaming, right? And then what's going to happen is it's going to say, hey, verify yourself on YouTube. And all it's asking really for is some kind of method of verification. There's different methods here. I use the phone number method where they text you the number, kind of a verification code that you put in. And when you're done, you're going to get this little message that says verified. Right? Even if you have a YouTube channel right now, you can't stream live unless you're verified. Right? So this is why this step is important. Questions so far?
So you're saying this is simply an additional resource for students?
Yes.
You don't have any evaluation?
Oh, no. We still have the evaluation. That's I'll tell you about that later. We still do the whole evaluation process. It's just that I don't let them evaluate each of the videos, right? The evaluation process as a whole is still happening, just around KPI time when we have our little surveys that come up for students. And I can tell you that I have always positive remarks about, or a response about doing this stuff. They say, Professor, the reason why I want to be in your class is because I know that you're one of the only professors that record their videos. All right? So that's a positive thing that I hear. I've heard negative things too. I'm not going to talk about, it's always positive. There's some negatives, but we'll talk about that after. Any other questions around this? So verification is important. You can't have a channel, you can have a channel, but you can't stream live without verification. Okay, so I'm verified. You're going to click on this new event, and you've seen me do this already, right? I've gone to my channel, right? I've gone to events. I've clicked on new live event, and then I name my event, and I do all that kind of work. As soon as I click on go live now, right? Then I'm live, and there is no transcoding. I don't need any special software. It's cross-platform, so you can be a Linux machine, you can be a Mac machine, you can be a PC. I think you can even do it now from your devices. There's actually YouTube streaming live with different apps for Android and iOS. So if you want to do it that way as well, although I don't recommend it because it's kind of weird. And here I'm recording my my screen, which is really what the students want to see. They don't want to see me. They want to hear my voice narrating in the background, not too crazy, of course, and then what I'm demonstrating. That's all they care about. And chances are, just like you will, when you're done this, if you ever watch this video, you're going to fast forward through all this chitter chatter that we're doing right now. You're going to go right to the good parts, and that's what students do. I'm also writing a paper with one of my colleagues on how YouTube helps, and from a technology perspective. And one of the things we noticed when we did analysis is that students typically watch for every hour of recording, right? So that's the ratio. So I record for an hour, and they don't really watch all that. They only watch the pieces that they want, and they usually fast forward. They usually go through it like chipmunk time, 1.5 times, 2 times the speed, because all they want to see is what I'm talking about, and that's all. They don't care about what I'm really saying too much.
Where is your camera position?
There's no camera. So all I'm doing is recording my screen, right? My camera's on my machine, right? But if I really wanted to record myself, I could, but I don't see the need, right? I'm not recording myself. I do have my.
If you wouldn't be showing the content or slides or.
Oh yeah, everything is being recorded right now. So my screen is being recorded right now. So everything that's on my screen is it's on YouTube, right? So if I do any kind of programming, then it's on YouTube immediately, right? And it's pretty good quality. I mean, it's 720p and higher that I can record, which is really good, depending on the resolution of your screen. That's one thing that you want to try and keep a good resolution. Okay, so I've set up my event. I'm streaming live now, and now let's talk about things that are positive and negative. Anyone have any issues trying this out? I encourage you to try it now. Don't wait for us to do it later. Try and stream now. Try and and again, you're not going to show your face. And one thing I have to also tell my students, and I tell you as well, is I'm not recording you. It's kind of a disclaimer. I say, I'm not recording you. I may capture your voices here and there if you ask a question, but I'm not recording you. I'm recording my screen. This is for you. It's a service that I'm providing. I don't guarantee it, right? I'm not going to guarantee anything, although the students will ask, hey, professor, how come your video was really bad last week? I couldn't hear the sound. Can you fix it? And then I'd have to upload everything to YouTube. Everything is public right now. So right now, if you wanted to make private, you could. You could also not advertise your video in any way. You could make it a link, so if it connects to your learning system, like Blackboard or Desire to Learn or whatever you're using, you could do that as well. All those kind of things are still possible when you record things with YouTube, and that's why I've chosen YouTube as the provider or the host for my videos. You can also choose Vimeo, and there's other services as well. All right, so after you filled everything out and you started recording, you're good to go. And you're going to go live on air, like I said. But we have to talk about some positives and negatives here. And then after we go through the slides and everything else, and I'm going to show you the recording, I'm going to go around and I want to help you try and do your first recording. I want you to try it out, and so you can see the whole workflow that's involved, right? So that you can see if it's for you. So what are the pros and cons? Let's talk about the pros. Students can listen and ask questions and participate instead of trying to keep up with you, right? That's the first thing I'd like to say, right? They can watch things at a later time. They don't have to follow along with you now. What if they're sick? What if they couldn't make it to class? What if they have to work a shift that day or something that's kind of beyond their control for their situation? Everyone has a different situation, different reason for being at school. Or what if they just can't attend at all this semester? They can only attend, and this happens to me too sometimes, they can only attend their midterm and their final exam, right? They can hand in all their materials, but they want to watch remotely. There's a bunch of different scenarios here that you can cater to. So those are kind of the pros. This is what this kind of technology enables. But we also have to talk about the negatives, right? Because I think there's quite a bit of negatives as well that can arise from this kind of thing as well. Again, whenever we introduce new technology, and I always think about things like drones, drones are really becoming really popular nowadays. And wow, that's really cool. You can do things like drone delivery, deliver things instantly from one part of the city to the other. And then I always think about the negatives, like, well, yeah, what about, drone robbery with a gun, right? Like I always think about the negative stuff. And so whenever we have a piece of technology, there's always the positives and negatives, how it's being used. So for me, one of the questions, like I said, that my colleagues would come up with is like, oh, I would never do that. Students don't even attend as it is now. With this kind of technology, they're never going to attend. Okay, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anything, from my analysis that I've done. And again, I've been doing this since 2011. It's not any worse or better. Okay, that's what I can tell you. Students may start depending on your recordings. Absolutely, and that's kind of a con. And the reason why is because if you miss a recording, you got this pressure that you need to do it, right? It's almost like, what if you don't record things that day? Or what if you want to do some kind of other exercise? Look, I'm kind of locked to my podium in a bit, right? In a way as well. You don't see me going up to the board or walking around the class to get your attention as often. That's a negative, right? So, as technology becomes better and I'm able to detach myself from this situation, and there are ways to do that with things like clicking the PowerPoint slides and connecting some kind of remote mic to my throat or something. I've tried it all. The challenge is that when you do this kind of stuff, something suffers, it's not perfect, and now you're doing a production. It's not a lecture anymore, right? And I wanted to get away from that. What about board work? I know some professors are totally, that board work is the thing that they do all the time. They're like, without board work, students can't learn, right? You're going to draw something on the board, and if you draw something, then you're not recording it, right? Well, yeah, I'm not recording. If I physically draw on the board, that's going to be bad. If I write something on the board. And then how about engaging students that are remote? Students are remote, they're watching remotely, people are asking questions. What if a student wants to ask a question when they're remote? How can you deal with that? And of course, there's technology for that as well. How about you guys? Is there anything that you could see as a negative to doing live recordings? Anybody? Yeah. I'll come back to you.
Outside of the school setting or an educational setting.
Yeah.
Corporately, like, especially.
Okay. Right. It could be, especially if you're public videos, right? That's a negative. But you don't have to do public videos. What about it? What else were you going to say?
I was thinking about the content and also maybe format of the classes. I think some just aren't really suited.
Some aren't suited,
So you can
right?
do case studies or something.
Yeah, then it may not make sense, right? And that's for demo classes. Anything you demo, this is great, right? But if I'm going to do some kind of exercise in class, like let's say if I was going to do a project management class and I was doing some kind of exercise, I don't know, I was teaching someone to do, or a class of students to do agile project management, and we used a Lego demonstration. We kind of built a Lego city together as a class, right? I can't record that. It's kind of hard to do that. Yeah.
Well, so then one could just know ahead of time, I'm going to record lectures 1, 3, and 7, and 8.
Correct.
Not because then you allow for the flexibility.
That's right. So you could tell them ahead of time. You could. Although, what else?
And I was just wondering, do you have to have students sign waivers at all?
No, typically I don't. No one's come at me yet, right? But there's been issues, and I got to talk about those issues, those bad things that have happened, right? Here's another con. Yeah. So
I have a question. Obviously, like you said, board work would be captured. If you had a smart board, would that be captured?
Maybe. Just like if you had a projector, right? If you had a projector that was kind of some kind of a camera that basically captures what you're doing, that's nice, but you'd have to switch to that somehow. It has to be connected to your machine, and you'd have to switch over to it like another desktop, right? That's how you'd have to treat it. It's possible, right, to do it that way with a smart board, but again, it now becomes a production. It's almost like I need an assistant, to help me with it, right? And I want to be a kind of a one-man show, right? Because we don't have the flexibility to have an assistant when we're demonstrating or we're delivering class material, right? But let me tell you about some other negatives, right? So remember, I'm being recorded right now. In class, if you say something that's wrong, I mean, it happens, right? And I talked about this earlier. You're a professor or you're a teacher and you're teaching, and sometimes, you say something a little bit off color, right? You don't mean to, or whatever, but, we're all people and we make mistakes and we say something that's wrong. And, in class, you can say, I'm sorry, and take it back. But when you're recording, it's recorded. So there's two possibilities. One, you take down the video fast enough that, you can fix it. And two, you may have to live with the results, right? So it hasn't happened to me, but I've had colleagues that have had very negative experiences around that. So you have to really be more polished and practiced in terms of what you say, what not to say when you're live. And that's why I like a little light that tells me that I'm live, like the light that's on my microphone right now, that's reminding me that, hey, Tom, you're live. Anything you say is being recorded live. And also the student is being recorded live too. So if they say something that's out of whack, right? They swear or whatever, it could be captured. Now, the great thing about my mic that I have right here, we're going to talk about devices that can help us, is that this kind of goes in one direction. So it's not an omnidirectional mic, so it's not going to pick up as much background noise as, let's say, my computer mic. That's why I don't use it. So that's one. And there's many other things that can happen, a bunch of other negative things that can happen when you're going live. An example of that would be copyright material. If you take anything from your textbook and you're demonstrating that, you really should get permission. You should definitely cite everything that's in there, just in case someone comes at you, because you're probably going to use, a lot of times you use slides that come right from the publisher, right? I don't know if they're made to go right on YouTube, right? Because now we're putting parts of their book up on YouTube, so that's a negative, right? Again, we're using it for educational purposes. We're not trying to make any money from it, typically, or anything like that. But any kind of information that we're taking from materials that are not our own, we have to really cite, and that can get us into trouble if we're doing things live. Music is another thing that's always come up for me as well. For example, when we do video games in class, I teach Unity as an example, or OpenGL. And when we're in there, we're talking about music for video games. Sometimes we'll play a little bit of a sound clip, right? But that little sound clip, it's against YouTube policy because it belongs to somebody else. And any copyrighted material, you have to kind of get permission for it, or make sure that your YouTube video is not monetized, or else you'll get in trouble. So those things you have to, these are kind of pitfalls that you can try and avoid as much as possible. So those, I mean, there's others too, but I mean, I'm sure you can think about other negative things that can happen, when it comes to this. One, definitely a negative when it comes to your workflow, if you will. You come in as a professor or a teacher, you're coming in, and now you're going to set this up. And like I showed you, I'm kind of locked to my podium a little bit, right? I can't walk around as much because then they can't hear me. And if they can't hear me, then the video isn't any good, right? So that's kind of a negative, yeah. Internet connection is definitely negative, but we're going to work a way around that. So what about things like board work? Well, there are definitely some free services out there that can, or they're start free, but they have a price that you can start with, and I recommend these. One, Concept Board is a really cool, kind of an online service that allows you to kind of create these little Post-it notes that you can put up. So an example of this would be, let's say, for example, I'm demonstrating, I'm doing some kind of code. I'm talking about object-oriented programming. And I say to the students, okay, I want you to put up a Post-it note, right, of what your code should look like. And now it goes on this concept board. Everyone logs in. This is the way it works, right? You have a board. Everyone kind of join the board, and it's anonymous, right? So they kind of go in and they put their solution on this little Post-it note, and everyone sees it. Doesn't matter whether you're here or you're remote, right? You see this little Post-it note. So, and it's also being recorded. So it's got the benefit. Anything that's on your screen, I think that's kind of the strategy. If you can put it on your screen, it's fantastic. And a good example of that is, if I want to draw something physically, I also have a tablet computer that I use, or a tablet that I kind of connect to my machine, and now it's a lot of connections, as you can see. But if I draw on the tablet, and if I have a piece of drawing software like Photoshop, Fireworks, one of my favorites, or Sketchbook Pro, which is kind of like it gives me a bit of a canvas that I can draw with. I can literally just kind of, the same kind of drawing that I would put on the board with my poor handwriting is going to still be captured on the, on my screen, which is in turn going to be captured on my video, right? So those kind of things is some things that you can kind of mitigate this. So Concept Board. The other one is, what about engagement? I like using Slack a lot. Slack and Discord have become two tools that students use, and businesses nowadays use these tools for communication. Slack is more of a workplace kind of tool that's really becoming popular. And so what I do nowadays, and I've been doing it over the last 3 semesters now, is I create a Slack account. It's free. And then all the students join my Slack account. So for example, it might be something like, if I was doing a Comp 100 course, Comp 100-Winter 2017-.slack.com as an example, right? And they would all join up to that Slack account. And what it is almost like a chat room just for our students, that we can share things like files. If I want to drop in a file, an image, I want to drop in a PowerPoint on the fly, I can do that right away. And you can have it as long as you have a smartphone or any other kind of device. You can get all my files, and we can also chat.
How does it differ from LMS, like Moodle or D2L? Or?
It's very similar to that. So, but the reason why I use Slack is because I find it's a little bit more flexible than those.
So like they don't need to log on? Is that it? Or?
No, they need to log on. I see who they are, right? But the great thing about it is there's a lot of integrations with Slack. Like it integrates with YouTube, it integrates with GitHub, it integrates with a bunch of other things, and that's why I recommend it. And students love it when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? So, not that I'm saying that the other tools that are part of your.
I had it. I used it once, but I couldn't see the. Maybe I didn't use all the features, but I didn't see the whatever.
There's a ton of things you can do with Slack. It's amazing. So Slack is kind of our communication tool that I use nowadays, and I create a channel. Everyone communicates on it. You can also do direct communications, like one-on-one, like you normally would. And no one has to know each other's cell phone numbers or even email addresses, really, at the end of the day. And we can kind of communicate, even if a student's remote. On the negative, I got to talk about positives and negatives. On the negative, they have me. So that means they can communicate with me 24/7 if I let them. So I kind of let them know from a norms perspective that I'm only going to be available during these hours, right? After certain hours, like for example, after 8 o'clock at night, I may not answer you. Not because I don't see you, but I have a family life. I have things I got to do. And yes, I know you have questions, and if I can get to it, I will. I'm going to make myself available, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be available 24/7. You have a question? It's kind of like that. It's like Hangouts, but instead of Hangout, and by the way, you can do a voice call with this as well. It does everything that all the other apps do, but I think it just becomes so popular, and there's so many different features to this thing. That's why I've kind of gone this way. And also from a business perspective, they can say, yeah, I know how to use Slack on an interview. Yeah. Sorry? Free. Now, on the proviso that what happens is if, let's say you put a lot of information on there, files and so on, then after a certain point of time, the older files get wiped away, right? And that's the negative. That's where they kind of get you and say, well, if you want to preserve all your files, everything you put up on Slack, then you have to subscribe. But again, it's a great service. The other tool that I use a lot is Polleverywhere.com. Sometimes I want instant information from students. Yes, you can do that with your Moodles and with your Blackboard. It's all a part of your learning systems. But I find that something like this, it kind of gives you instant polling. You can also do polling with Slack, this polling integration. But with this one, what it does is it gives you kind of a live poll. It also allows them to text you their answers, so it's anonymous. They can use their PC or Mac or whatever. So there's a lot of ways they can respond to this, and so it kind of promotes this live interaction in the classroom.
Is it like soccer?
It's kind of like that, but what this does is it again, it's just one software. All it does is it's software that allows you to answer to a poll. You create your own poll, whatever you want, your own questions. You can make a whole quiz. Yes. You can do, yeah, and if you want to, and what you can do is now there is a professor or teacher account that you can get if you as an educational account that you can sign on for free. That gives you 40 responses per poll, which is kind of good. That's a pretty good number, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to get an account right away. If you like it, there are other plans that are really, really good. And by the way, I don't work for any of these people. I just know that I use this stuff all the time. So questions around this, so we need some other enabling technologies. Once you start going down this path, you can't just say, well, all I do is record videos. Sorry, I'm gonna wipe my hands of everything else. But what about the rest of the stuff we do, the board work? I can't stop doing those things. So I got to find other ways of doing it. And this is my solution.
So right now you're just recording your screen and you're recording your voice.
Yes.
When I was telling you this, we're recording what we're doing. So we actually want to see us.
You could do that. If I really want to, I could have a camera that I can record everything I want.
Do you have like recommendations for cameras that are?
Document cameras are pretty good. There's some really cool document cameras that allow you to kind of focus here and then focus over there at the same time, like kind of that allow you to shift your focus for what you're recording. So totally, there's ways of doing it. I just never had a need for it, so I didn't do that. But I've been thinking about it a lot. The thing is, you need to have it connected to your machine because you want to be able to have the flexibility of doing something like this, where I flip my screen and then I'm back to the document camera and back to my PowerPoint. That simply. And if it's that easy, then that's great. But if it becomes a chore, okay, we're going to stop recording now, and then I got to switch, and then I got to switch back and unplug and plug in, forget it. It's just not, I don't recommend that at all, right? It's going to just take away from your lecture, actually, if anything else. It's going to distract you and everybody else. And it happens sometimes. I have to put my hand up and say, that's another con, right? Because if I can't connect, sometimes I'm trying to connect, and then I just give up, and I just record locally, right? Because I want to keep going. It's the lecture, it's not the recording that's important. Let's talk about best practices a little bit before we take a short break, and then I'll come around because we have a few more minutes. All right, stop recording when it makes sense. I think this is a good one. You can't record nonstop. I can't record 2 hours of lecture and not take a break. That doesn't make any sense. You want to have some, I kind of do things with kind of in a lecture lab format in my classes, right? Sometimes you don't have that choice. Sometimes you're talking to a cast of thousands, where you're just lecturing. You're talking about concepts, right? So you want to take a break where it makes sense to take a break. You talk about the end of a chapter, you're finishing off a module or some other thing. You want to take a break at that point. So it kind of ends that discussion, right? So that each video makes sense. Shorter videos are good, but the problem with shorter videos is that means they have to have a long playlist of things they have to watch before they get the whole piece. Although a lot of people have given me feedback. They're like, if it was a little bit shorter, Tom, it'd be better. The other thing is when you need to take a break at least every hour. Like that is like bare minimum. And I'm telling you this, you might think, well, of course we're going to take a break every hour. Yeah, okay. Start recording first. Once you start doing this recording thing, you'll see it becomes, you have to stop yourself, right? Because you can just keep going. So that's part of it. And again, it's going to be within the same workflow that you're using right now when you do your lectures or classes. It's better to plug in, absolutely, right? I'm not plugged in right now. I'm Wi-Fi, which means any possibility, if you guys are all connected with devices in this room, we're all sharing the same access point, there's a possibility it's going to go down, right? And that's a negative. You might also have some weird voice modulation happening, like where I kind of zone in and out of my voice because of the Wi-Fi, because it's best effort. It doesn't mean that there's no guarantee that my upload is going to continue at the same rate of speed that it is right now. So always plug in if you can. Get a good mic. This mic that I'm using right now is a product of me having to experiment with different things like throat mic, like a handheld mic, like earphones that plug into some other device mic, right? The mic that's on my machine, which has a lot of noise, fan noise, and so on. All the mics that I found that are omnidirectional, it's the wrong thing to do. Don't get an omnidirectional mic. Get a kind of a condenser mic that points in one direction. And this is a good example of that. My recommendation is this Blue Microphone Snowball. It's $56.99 at Amazon. If for me as a sessional lecturer, it's not that expensive, and it makes sense to get. It's reliable. It's a USB mic that plugs into your machine, and it works cross-platform, right? So that's why I recommend it. Because if you don't have good sound, then the students really can't hear you, and then that's half the reason why you're recording in the first place, isn't it? Stuff happens, right? So fill in the blanks there, but internet's going to drop, and what do we need? Like I talked about before, just as a reminder, a backup. So I recommend either ScreenFlow or OBS or Camtasia or any other transcoding software that you're comfortable with that works on your platform. But remember, at the end, you're going to transcode, means convert from whatever format that you're recording at, because the way we record in one format, and then we transcode and we create something like an AVI or an MP4 that we put up on YouTube. So there's two parts to it. There's transcodes, there's record, transcode, and upload, which is that post-production work I want to avoid as much as possible. But in a pinch, if I have to, and if the students are addicted, what am I going to do? I have to do it. It's a con. I have to admit it. And that's really what I want to cover today. Yeah.
I was just thinking, I don't know technically if this is true, but transcode for mobile versus
If it's on YouTube, no. Yeah. Once it's on YouTube, you're good, right? So that's why I do it on YouTube, right?
So now with decreased upload speeds and all this, so what is there really, is it still a significant trade-off between time, like live stream versus upload?
If you are in an institution, like for example, when I'm at George Brown or Georgian College or Centennial or wherever I'm teaching, then the upload speed is lightning. Like literally it'll take me for an hour's worth of recording, it'll take me 5 minutes, right? Go home though, and it's asynchronous.
So on the other side of the so the advantage, does it happen fairly often that there is a content that you would like to have edited?
Sometimes, for example, passwords is a good example, right? I'm putting in my password to get up to, I use the cloud services all the time. I use Microsoft Azure. I use things like a Google Cloud Platform. I might have different API keys that I have to use as a developer, and I share them on YouTube, which is wrong, right? So I have to sometimes go in there and kind of black them out, right? So yes, there are times like that, but it's kind of rare, right? I try not to do that as much as possible, right? Or I try and prepare ahead of time, and then I show them what it looks like, but then I don't actually show them on the video, right? Because I can't. Or I show them during break, right?
I'm just trying to assess whether doing the live stream is a necessity or is it that doesn't provide the benefit?
It's not that I want to live stream. That's not, the broadcasting was a side effect. It's almost like it's the real thing is I want to be able to record myself, transcode and upload all in one blow. That's what it is. So broadcasting was kind of a side business that came out, right? Yes.
You were saying about YouTube.
Yeah.
That means that lecture is done in the next 12 minutes.
So that video, so when you take a break, you're going to stop recording. I'm going to do that in a second. And when I stop recording, it's going to do all its processing up online, and then I'm going to have to start off a new event. I can do as many events as I want through the time that I have through the day. There's no limit, but I'm going to have to stop. There is no pause button. Correct. For example, if I have a 3-hour class, I might do only part 1 and part 2 because maybe I'm going to have some kind of exercise in class that I'm going to do, right? That can't be recorded or doesn't make any sense to record. Yes. Yeah. So I try and do something like we just came off of an exercise, and I try and have a kind of a workflow to my video. So I'll do something, and I'll show you a little bit of them, what they look like after this. I just can't show you my video while I'm recording my video. That's kind of a weird thing, right? Because it's kind of recording and showing. But that's the way we do it. The workflow is you have this stuff. It doesn't replace. And again, I want to put it out again. It does not replace in class, Q&A, any kind of exercises, quizzes. That's another thing I had to lock down a lot. If I have a quiz in class that day, I do that a lot because I want to try and have students come in. And I definitely password the quiz, all that kind of stuff. I check the IP address, all those things to secure it, because once I'm live with Slack and all the other tools, they can just send their password off to their friend, and away they go. They can do my quiz in class when they're not even there, which is a negative, right? If it's online. So yeah, all the regular activities you can still do. It's not like you can't do that stuff. You can even use board work, but you'd have to kind of have some way of capturing it later on to upload later. Yeah. You know what? Not so far. But then I have, I got to talk about that a little. Thank you for that. Anyone can watch these videos, right? So that means most of my audience, if you look at the analytics, is from Canada and the US, but sometimes I get people from Africa, the continent, or I get from Europe or someplace like that, right? So they've asked, and really it's a service for them. I don't teach in a bilingual kind of, school or anything like that. We don't do that. However, I think there's a great value in to be more inclusive, to do that kind of work. I need an assistant, right? There's just no way I have time. Google does a very bad job, like YouTube. Well, sorry, YouTube, but since I'm recording, but YouTube kind of does this automatic artificial intelligence, machine learning way of kind of picking up what I'm saying. But if I speak really, really quickly, or if I have a bit of an accent that's different than what the machine understands, then they'll do the closed captioning wrong. So yeah, in a perfect world, I would love to do that. I think it's a great way of including more people, right? Especially people. Not yet. No one's asked me for it. Put it that way. No one's asked me to transcode it. Although I've had students that have disabilities where they can't hear me, and they've asked me to do it. And from that perspective, I have at the time I had a lot of work to do on a couple of videos to get that done, and then I stopped. I couldn't. There was just so much prep as it is. For me to do that too, like literally an hour of me speaking to do closed captioning is really hard, right? Time-wise. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to stop recording now because I want to show you the results. So thank you very much for listening. Let me go into the video now and stop it. So remember, we've been recording this whole time. Let's see how we've been doing. This is my screen that I've been recording. We're still live. I'm going to stop the broadcast right now.